Good evening, everybody. Good evening, man. Yes, I am live on a Thursday. You wouldn't have expected that, but there's big things happening, big things. And with me tonight is Jefferson Spatchcock, and I think that we're. It's. I honestly, I don't know if we're gonna have this is gonna be fun or it's gonna be an absolute fucking shit show. I really don't.
Yeah, it's
But
anybody's guess.
but we are gathered tonight because tonight, June 27th, 2024, here in about, what is it, say 25 minutes or so. About 25 minutes is kind of like the pre-show going on, but we have the first presidential debate, okay, going into the election for the 2024, or I guess the 2025 election or whatever, 2024 election. But yeah, we got two old timers, as you saw via the thumbnail. We got Captain Bone Spurs, and we got the shade thrower Biden come together to, I guess, debate. And it's fascinating. I've never done this before. And politics in general, just like hard politics, is not really the focus of my channel. But I make an exception for this one. And that is because of how far reaching and, for lack of a better term, completely fucked up Project 2025 is. And so knowing that Project 2025 exists, it is a thing that conservatives want to have happen. I figured it is important in order to understand that if Trump gets into office, we know the playbook as to what is going to happen with the conservative majority Supreme Court, and what's going to happen both at how the federal government is going to have this affect both at their level and at the local level, just across the board. And ostensibly, we're going to see the degradation of the Constitution of the United States of America, and it's going to be deeply problematic for a lot of fucking people. And so there's going to be lawsuits galore, and it's going to be absolutely insane. But, it's those initial steps towards theocracy, which is, I think, bridges over into the content that I handle. Because if this thing were to happen, if this thing, Project 2025 were to come to fruition, then I guarantee my content, you'll be seeing a lot of that shit, especially considering the fact that I live in the reddest of red states, the oxygen-deprived, blood-colored state of Oklahoma. And so you will see that shit, on the regular. But man, oh man, I don't know how it's going to turn out. We got interesting setup. So the setup is, we got Biden and Trump. We got no audience to pander to. We have two moderators, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash out of CNN. And then we've got mics to be cut when it's not the person's time to talk. And so
we're going to hear a lot of off mic commentary happening from Trump. Probably from Biden too, but a lot from Trump.
I did love that one. Just at one of the last debates, of years ago, was the whole man, will you just shut up, man?
you just shut up, man.
It's at that point, it's like, God, dude, do you ever just listen? No, he doesn't. He doesn't listen. He doesn't. So I figured that this was an important thing to watch. Now, I don't think I'm going to be streaming the second one that's supposed to take place, I believe, in August, or is it July? I honestly don't care. But
yeah,
I think this one sets the tone, because how Trump, who I think we can agree, by virtue of the evidence of the 4 years he was in office, of his failure of a presidential term, I think that we can see that he is the one who is more impulsive, that his impulsivity may get him into trouble. And because he's got nobody to play to, there's no haha, I'm going to appeal to the audience. He can't Darth Dawkins it, for lack of a better term, where he can't be like, haha, see, this is what they do. Haha, I can't do that, because they're going to, and hopefully Tapper and Bash are up to the challenge of moderating this prick, for lack of a better term. I hate to sound partisan in that, but
doesn't Trump hate Jake Tapper too?
I think he does, because Tapper's yeah. So I don't know. So like I said, this is going to be, it's the first time I've ever I've live streamed debates that are being hosted on other channels before. This will be basically shared over from CNN's broadcast, because it's the only one that I could really find that's hosting it. I know I can count on them, in case people don't want to go and give CNN the view. So I'll just go ahead and host it here, and we can have our commentary. We'll have our live chat, and this will be really, really interesting. I'm productive. So let's do a prediction. Because I'm glad that you're here, because you handle politics way more than I do. Okay,
Yeah.
I've become more aware politically at a local level, and that's why I deal with the douchebags that we have in our state legislator,
That's good.
yeah. So I try to deal with that shit. But federally, I'm not the most versed. Probably because I've never been in trouble with the feds, so I've never really had to worry about that. I'm not committing federal crimes, so we're good to go. But nonetheless, it's important to know these things. Jefferson, you're more versed on this than I am, politically speaking. So, given all your coverage of individuals like Pine Creek, okay, who often goes into politics, and you have to break that shit down and how these things actually work. So, my curiosity is, prediction wise, what do you think are the topics that are going to get touched on tonight?
I was wondering about that because I'm not sure how they're going to touch how they're assembling the questions. But my guess is they're going to hit them on economic record, because that's a layup. They'll try to do
economy,
that to both.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially since this is a former president and the current president, so that's easy. They can compare records. So economic records will get compared. They'll hit the tough ones. They're going to hit. I guarantee you, there's going to be a question about supporting a federal abortion ban. More than likely, it'll be interesting to hear Trump lie again about this, because he keeps saying that he won't. He was in that All In podcast, and he said he wouldn't support it. It's like, yeah, you will. You're going to have to, because the Heritage Foundation and others have set up Project 2025 for you. You will be pushing for a national abortion ban. That will happen. They'll touch on that. They're going to touch on immigration. They're going to touch on it'll be interesting to hear, but I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear anything about the pandemic.
Really? Because I think what a big thing plays into it is Biden's economic policies allowed the U.S. to have the softest landing as far as inflation goes in response to the pandemic. I mean, his pandemic response and getting our economy back on track, by comparison to the world, has by far been the best. And the numbers don't lie. Like, statistically, of the statistics and the numbers that are there, you can't deny them. The evidence is there that Biden's policies, and of course the very brilliant people that are working with him in that process, but those people know what the fuck they're doing. And so I don't know. I don't see how he's going to be able to get around that, or even not rephrase, but how he's going to turn it. I don't see how he can turn that to his advantage.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, what I should be more specific. It wouldn't surprise me if Jake Tapper and Dana Bash don't bring it up. I would be surprised if Biden doesn't touch on it, or if I mean, I think it's an even bet as to which one is going to throw out that chunk. Because it'll be either Trump blaming Biden for something related to COVID, or Biden excoriating Trump for fucking up the pandemic response from the jump. So yeah, I think it's a safe bet. One of them is going to go. Not a safe bet to figure out which one's going to go first, because I think they might both be eager to do that. But I don't know that there's going to actually be like an official question. I think it'll end up being like a tangent. But yeah, the biggest stuff's going to be inflation. Sort of people. Probably they'll touch on the disconnect between how well the economy is doing in terms of numbers, and how bad people feel about it, because we have. I mean, let's face it, we still have enough entrenched issues still dealing with inequality that the vibe is bad. It's like between housing, cost of food, all that kind of stuff. Tack that onto some of the problems that were already bad before the pandemic, and the pandemic just made them worse. It just exposed every weakness in the economy. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking they'll probably lean on economic issues for about 30% of it. They'll get into foreign policy. They're going to get into the war in Ukraine and aiding them. They're going to wonder if Trump is going to be committed to Ukraine. Maybe they'll get wonky and ask him about his commitment to Taiwan. That'd be kind of weird. But it'd be interesting for them to ask him about that, because Republicans have been getting real weird about how they've been presenting like how the White House deals with Taiwan, which is because it's nuanced, so they dislike that and they want to throw that out. And then
that also be kind of interesting, given like the fawning relationship that Trump has had in the past over Xi Jinping, and how that kind of plays into this, because how are you going to maintain that? I mean, the man says one thing, does a complete other. We know that there are groups and groups that work around him that he's essentially, they got their hands so far up his ass, he pretty much just mouths whatever he think, whatever's going on. So I'm very, very curious. I honestly don't know. I feel like I'm in the ocean with no paddles. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And so I'm kind of excited about this. I really am. So a host of issues that we're probably going to be talking about. I no doubt abortion is going to be a huge one that's going to be on the table, especially given what Idaho just did. And of course, what just happened with the Supreme Court, inadvertently releasing that paper. I was like, inadvertently, it's like, just like more than once. Come on, guys.
Yeah. So somebody,
whoever that whistleblower is in the Supreme Court, whatever clerk is there going,
I'm a bureaucratic underling that has to engage in like monthly cybersecurity drills and lessons. I think the Supreme Court staffers need that.
I think we got a Snowden working for the Supreme Court. He's like,
something is up over there.
The nation's gonna want to see this.
Ooh, good stuff. I wonder if this will cause a controversy. Like, yes, that will.
You got that one staffer in the back with the T.
The staffer holds up a thing. It's from Alito, and it says Trump gets to be king, and they're just like, "Oh shit!" They kill each other right there, trying to get to Twitter.
Oh, this is gonna be hilarious, and not to mention, this is also extraordinarily important. I have no doubt, because depending upon who wins this election, it's pretty much predicted across the board that there are going to be two more individuals that are going to be leaving out of the Supreme Court. I can't remember specifically. It was Alito and somebody else. Well, like probably Clarence Thomas.
Clarence Thomas. Yeah, because I think
it's probably going to be
5.
Yeah, are likely going to be retiring. Now, if they do so, and Trump is in charge, that pretty much cements like the Supreme Court within his control. We could see some serious curtailing of the rights and privileges that we enjoy in this country, so that protect especially minorities and and pretty much all minorities, and women as well. So I don't know. This is a very important election, and I think that if you're not going to vote, I think you should. It is obviously your choice, but I think this one I think all eyes are on this one. It was impressive how many people came out to vote in 2020. That numbers were up across the board, especially the 18 to 24 demographic came out to vote in that, and that was very, very good. So when we want to see more of that, we want to see massive, massive jumps in all of the all the demographics across the board, and we want to see that happen. So because when people we find the statistics show us that when people are educated and people come out to vote, things swing blue. We see that happening, So
and with this one, it's gonna, so much of this is gonna ride on the fact that building up to it. I think most of the Biden campaign, and I think a lot of other downstream campaigns are going to really be pushing birth control. Access to abortion care, all that stuff. Because if that is a huge winner, and at the end of the day, if you go to vote for one of these guys, if you vote for it's Team Trump, because you're voting for a whole gaggle of misfits. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump before they're declaring a federal ban on it.
Right.
And then trying to do what they were talking about before. They've got plenty of other people that are in that camp that are like, next step is gay marriage. We're going to revisit that, and then we're going to try to go after other forms of contraception. Like,
right.
Okay, So, yeah, it's going to be really important but I don't want to discount that. I think the biggest thing to have hit Biden is like the youth vote being tampered down because of the shit in Gaza, in Israel. So we'll see. I think that's probably one of the reasons. I don't know if that's the reason why they might be polling close, because most of those polls are done, you have to get somebody to pick up that phone call, and not a lot of people will anymore. A lot of young people are like, no, don't know it, not answering. Text me.
Right.
So yeah, they need to come up with a better way to do polling.
Well, before we dive into this tonight, so there may be membership milestone chats, there may be super chats, or maybe super thanks or anything that come through during the debate. I will pick all those up and I will read those out. The StreamYard stars them automatically and holds them so I can go through them. So during the debate, I don't want to interrupt it. I want to try and minimize the interruptions as much as possible while we're doing whatever commentary we feel is important. And then I'll get to those after the debate is over. So I honestly don't know how long this is going to last. Whatever, I've got nowhere else to be, and I want to be here watching this with all of you, with Jefferson. I want to get our opinions on this. We did have some star chats coming in. Super J Live has been a member of the Godless Army for 15 months. Thank you so much, Super J Live. I appreciate that support. Blue as well has gifted 5 memberships to the Godless Army. Thank you so much, Blue. We do appreciate that. Left-Handed Jedi gifted 10 memberships to the Godless Army. Thank you so much, Left-Handed Jedi. You rock. And a $5 Australian from PhD Tony. Good to see you, Tony. Says, if we knew what was going to happen, we wouldn't actually need the debate to happen. Stop trying to discuss determinism. Focus, JL. This is politics. Thank you, Tony. I do appreciate that. Tony rocks. Tony keeps me honest. He really does. Because if I'm not, he goes Krakatony, and then we all have to worry. Because it sends reverberation. It sends reverberations throughout the internet, and other channels start picking it up, and they start wondering what's going on.
I've only heard of the after effects of Krakatony. I don't think I've actually been around for an eruption. So yeah,
it's impressive. The latest that genetic bottleneck you hear about, Krakatony. You know. All right. So before we dive into, let's see. I'm going to run through this real quick because I like to do it, and I love having people in. I like you. You have a lot of places that you can choose to hang out. You choose to hang out here at Bridge the Divide, so I do appreciate that. I'm going to run through this really quick. Skeptic Dan, good to see you. John Fabiano as well. Thank you so much for being here. PhD Tony, appreciate you hanging out. Victor Martin, good to see you. Rasheen, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here tonight. I see Jeff C as well. Thank you so much for being here. And I see Frayed Edges. Thank you so much for hanging out. Ollie Man, thanks so much for being here as well. But to do J-Verse, good to see you. Foxy Raccoon as well. Appreciate you hanging out. Yes, Rodin Last Name says Gramp Rage. Yeah, it's the ultimate Gramp-Off. Thank you so much, Rodin Last Name. Gabba Gabba to you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Stephen Lee, good to see you. Let me see who else. We got Adam Strange is hanging out. Mr. Andrade as well. Thanks so much for being here, both of y'all. Zachariah Hooper says, both my parents just turned 70, and they're still not old enough to run for president. I know, right? Just too young. Too young and able-minded.
Yeah.
Let me see. XPI Sigma Art is here. Good to see you. It's time to watch 2 cartoon characters have a debate. Agreed. John Fabiano, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Michael Deaton, thanks so much for hanging out. Daniel Cooper as well. Jeff C. Jason T, good to see you. Says, howdy, y'all. Said the Canadian guy in Korea. Thank you so much, bud. And on that knockdown, drag out broadband you got out there, I am jealous. I'm jealous of your broadband. I really, really am. So jealous because we could have it, but we refuse to. Jay Patrick is here. Good to see you, Jay. Thanks so much for hanging out, bud. Appreciate it. Always good to see you. Yep. Michael Dean says, oh, goody. Jefferson's here. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. I need, we're talking politics. So you know what I need when we talk politics? I need a steaming hot bowl of buttery Jeffy Pop. That's what I need. I really do.
Politics cred's going nowhere with that.
Jay Patrick says 2 of the most long-winded motherfuckers on YouTube.
Yeah, it's true.
We so are. Lord Redfang, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Javers, good to see you, bud. Appreciate you hanging out. Cindy Sue, Charlie Welch, the only man on the internet never make a bet with. Good to see you, Welchie. Vanguard Shield, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for hanging out. Make sure I didn't miss nobody. Spooky Bed Hair is here. Good to see you, Spooky. Mr. Andrade, good to see you. I'm probably repeating some people. Martin H says, oof, Trump versus Biden. Which one's the flurf? If anybody was going to be a flurf, it would likely be Trump. So what's up? Yeah. What?
No, I was just going to say, it's like, okay, Trump has some weird ideas. Biden's also a pretty dedicated Catholic.
That's so true. Dude, if you ever get an opportunity, I know you don't do this stuff, but you ever gonna get an opportunity, MC Toon, who is a known Christian, who's a devout Christian, had a discussion on his channel. Well, I had a discussion on the channel of another guy who goes by Kingdom in Context. His name's Steve, something like that. And they had this because obviously, MC Toon, very science-minded, KIC, not science-minded at all, believes the earth is flat because he thinks the Bible says the earth is flat, blah, blah, blah. And it turned into the biggest, it's like 2 devout Christians talking to each other, turned into the biggest shit show I've ever seen. Just it's quite funny. So I will recommend that.
They call that being in the flesh. Holy Spirit, take a back seat and hold my beer. I'm going after this. Somebody's wrong on the internet. Like, no, don't follow Satan down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
Fucking love it. Let me see. Ape-Shaped Carbon is here. Good to see you, Ape-Shaped Carbon. Appreciate you hanging out. See Blue over there. Thank you so much, Blue. PJ CNET, good to see you. Make sure I didn't miss nobody. I'm getting there. Jesse Adams, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. And I see Dan Shire says CNN wants the clicks just as much as the candidates. They'll ask about Trump's conviction and Biden's son. I have no doubt those probably come up. No doubt a reference to Hunter will pop up. Definitely. And who's, by the way, I think his law license was just revoked. So, it's one of there's going to be fallout in his life. We're going to see that happen. Yippee Skippy, good to see you. Bench Thinker as well. Thanks so much for being here tonight. And I think I caught Wow Signal. Good to see you. Grape Shot, good to see you. Super J Live says, who's going to win? Not America. I hope. Well, what?
Fair.
Fair. I'm sitting here trying to waffle and be like, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, it's a presidential debate, and these guys, I mean, one's the incumbent, but I mean, technically they haven't even been nominated by their parties for their second go.
Right.
So after this debate,
at this point,
well, you get to hear from people on both sides being like, well, wait, what if the Democrats don't pick Joe Biden? Like, they're going to pick him. But what if they don't? So this debate's for nothing. It's like the whole point of this debate, and even the structure. I was going to make this point before, with mics being muted and all this kind of stuff. The idea is to get bankable, runnable quotes from Trump.
It's true
that you can run as campaign ads. Yeah, and vice versa. I'm sure the Trump campaign will be looking for the same thing. But yeah.
Shovelhead Steve, good to see you. Says these slimy holy rollers must be stopped. I do agree with you on that. Rasheen says I'm rooting for the giant asteroid. I got money on that one as well. So hopefully it's on my 2025 Apocalypse bingo card. I
root for underdogs. So I mean I can't do it. The asteroid's gonna win. I mean,
come on, Apophis. Come on, Apophis. Daddy needs a facelift. It's probing time. 666 is here. 666 is here. 666 is here. Oh, try to say that 5 times fast. Good to see you. Probing time. Let me see. Moving too fast, so I can't make the normal joke there. Skeptic Dank, good to see you. Appreciate you hanging out. And I think Ida Pimp Utaho, good to see you. Tina Jones as well is lurking. Daniel Cooper says, yes, I fucking can. Yes, he fucking can. That is that is what echoes across the plains when Krakatoni, that circumnavigating force. That's what people hear when it blasts through them and shatters their atoms to the wind. Is the yes, I fucking can. So that's the Krakatoni. So let me see. Make sure I didn't miss nobody. Greg Dickinson, good to see you. Captain Butt, Timo Lynch, good to see you. Michael Deaton, I think I got everybody. Scroll down. Fenton Mully, good to see you. And I think NANA. So I think I caught everybody. I actually think I caught everybody. I think I just used a double negative. Apparently I did.
I just wanted to make sure that you got Captain Butt. So
Captain Butt, yes.
Yeah, Captain Butt is here.
All right. And Jesse Adams, good to see you, bud. Appreciate you being here. Let's see. Raven Darkstar says, JL, even in here, you miss me. How are you? There's a bunch of people in the chat. I tried to catch everybody and I had to move fast because we're going to go live over to CNN here pretty soon. So Raven, good to see you. Random Name Generator, good to see you. Karis 2030, Tang Whistle CPM, and Nano Machines. Good to see you all. Fantastic. So I swear, if the channel gets any larger, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore, and people are going to think I don't notice them. But I do try, because I love the fact that all of y'all are hanging out here. You could be hanging out anywhere, so you could be there's a lot of other places better than here. So, and I just got the notification, so we are going live.
Oh, countdown is 32 minutes. Okay.
32 minutes? Oh, at 8 o'clock? No, it's supposed to be at 7:30.
Well, that's probably when their coverage started, right?
Wait, let me see.
I'm sure they've got. Now, are you going to get dinged for showing this particular feed, or is this like a?
No, I don't think so. Because I did this before with other. I did that before with other channels as well. We can simulcast it because we're on the screen and we're providing commentary. It's transformative. Yeah.
Okay.
And I got Tudo. So NANA, thank you so much. Who has gifted 20, not 20, but 10 more. So 30 memberships to the Army of the Dead. Thank you. Or sorry, no, that's the other channel to the Godless Army. Thank you so much, Anna. You rock. I appreciate the support, bud.
You have a Godless Army and an Army of the Dead? I don't have one army. You got 2 armies.
I have 2 armies.
You got to get more armies.
Okay. John Fabiano says, Blasphemy Jail. I love an asteroid as much as the next guy, but I'd rather visit Apophis than have Apophis visit us. Haha. Good point. Yeah. I can see that. Meme City, good to see you. Says Biden is like the grandpa that still lives at home. Trump is like the grandpa that lives in an old people's home that yells at the orderly because the elves keep taking his jello.
Those elves do get up to stuff. So
they do.
Yeah, so they're already doing, so they're going to do the warm-up coverage. And this is done in Atlanta, right?
Yes.
Sources tell CNN President Biden
make sure people can hear that. Everybody can hear that okay?
It's a bit quiet.
Presents to the nation.
Let me see.
Democracy. What we're told he will not do is announce any major policy or personnel decisions. As for Donald Trump, allies urging the former president to do the opposite. Focus on policy-driven talking points like inflation, immigration, and crime, all areas they feel Donald Trump is much stronger than Biden.
For President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, the pressure is on to address voters' key concerns.
They cheated like dogs. They cheated like nobody's ever cheated before.
Trump has been
cheated like the cheating cheaters they are.
Cheatersons.
The false claim.
And I'm sure they're used to pressure. I mean, orthopedic socks. You know, got to keep that. Or what are those? The circulation bands. Got to keep the circulation going.
Stormed the Capitol.
Yeah, you need that compression wear.
Compression bands. Yeah.
Hostages, not prisoners. I call them the hostages. What's
the hostages?
And it's a shame.
Even though Trump has repeated these claims for years, 65% of U.S. adults believe correctly that Biden won the election legitimately. The same number who believed that just before his inauguration. Views on the January 6 rioters, though, are much more complicated. According to a poll that was released on the 3rd anniversary of the Capitol riot, Republicans were much less likely to believe the participants were mostly violent than they were 2 years ago.
Democrats I hate vague language like that.
Much more consistent
mostly violent.
Meanwhile, as the oldest sitting president,
I know I'm 198 years old.
81-year-old Joe Biden has struggled to calm concerns about his age. He's tried dismissing them.
Take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
He's tried comparing his performance to that of 78-year-old Trump.
You got to take a look at the other guy. He's about as old as I am, but he can't remember his wife's name.
He's even tried turning it into a joke.
When I was graduating from high school 300 years ago.
Still, polling shows that voters are concerned. 81% of U.S. adults think Biden is too old to serve another term. A smaller number, 55%, say the same about Trump. And then there is abortion. That's an issue Trump has dramatically shifted on over the years. Back in the 1990s, Trump said
dramatically shifted. They used to call that flip-flopping.
Then, as president, he spoke out in favor of a national 20-week abortion
this is
ban
interesting
with few
because
exceptions.
I understand age is a thing, but he's not the only person making decisions.
And
there's a massive team around him
changed course
of people like 3/4 to half his age making helping to make those decisions.
Where
and so
everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land. In this case, the law of the state.
Only 37% of U.S. adults agree with Trump's latest stance that abortion policy should be left up to the states. This issue has been a losing one for Republicans since the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. 49% of voting age Americans support federal laws to ensure abortion access. For Biden, while recent job numbers and slowing inflation point to a strong economy, Americans just aren't feeling it. Still, the president is trying to make the case that he's better on the economy than Trump.
He's never succeeded in creating jobs, and I've never failed.
True.
I've created over 15 million jobs since I've been president.
While inflation has slowed, it is still higher than when Trump was in office, and Biden...
Trump fucked up a lot.
You know, prices are too high because of what I call greedflation and shrinkflation. I'm calling on corporations to pass.
Yeah, that's why our Snickers are smaller.
For God's sake, we're making real progress.
But polls show that the economy is still a top issue for Americans, and Biden is losing this argument to his opponent. More Americans trust Trump over Biden to handle both the economy and inflation. On these potential vulnerabilities for both candidates,
Why?
the question remains.
I don't know.
Will their
I do not
arguments
know.
ultimately
Let me
voters
send you
over?
this in the
Welcome
private
to the
chat.
CNN
This link
presidential
here.
debate. We want to give our viewers a sense of the rules of the debate so that when they watch
Just
it,
started
they
hearing
can
about this
understand
morning.
President Biden and President Trump will be engaging with each other.
So
Tomorrow night, just
an
after
article
9
from
p.m.
and it's been
Biden
around.
will
This one's
enter
from
the
Al
right side
Jazeera.
of your
16
screen.
Nobel Prize-winning
Mr. Trump will
economists
enter
warned
from the
Trump
left
would
side of your screen.
reignite inflation.
Podiums are
So
8
Joseph
feet
Stiglitz and
apart,
others
directly across from them,
basically written
the
this letter
moderators,
warning
Jake
like
Tapper and Dana Bash.
if you want a
A
decent
reminder,
economy, you
this
don't
is a
want to vote for
television
Trump.
studio. There's no audience. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions and 1 minute for responses and
I'll
rebuttals.
take that.
At the
That's a
moderator's
compliment
discretion,
right
there
there.
may be an
That's high
additional
praise.
minute for follow-ups,
That's high praise.
clarifications,
That's high
or
praise.
responses.
That's
So
high
how does
praise.
the candidate
Unless
know how much time is left
unless
to
you
speak?
hate Mr.
Attach
Unless you
cameras in the studio and
unless
only
you hate
candidates feel the
MS3K,
glue
yeah.
of
these
the
guys are
timing
just
light.
shitty
I
as
think-
Misty.
When the lights show
I think
yellow,
he- I
there are
think
15
I think
seconds
I'm
left for the
Crow.
candidate's answer or
I'm
response.
Crow,
When the lights
and
flash red,
Am I,
there are
does
5
that make me
seconds
Tom
left.
Servo?
And when the
I
display
think you're
is
Tom. I
solid
think
red,
you're Tom.
Yeah.
You're
the
Tom, and
time
I'm Crow.
is up. At that point, the candidate's microphone will be turned off, and the other candidate will have their microphone turned on. My colleague, Victor Blackwell, has more on that.
One of
Yeah,
these
well,
candidates
if we
will
go
be
behind the
forced to the
podiums, you can
floor if he
see two
continues to
green
use the
lights.
mic. Like,
When they're on,
try to
they
guess
signal
which
to the
one.
candidate
I think
his
you'll be pleasantly
microphone is on.
surprised.
When the green lights are off, they signal to the candidate his microphone
Daniel
is
Cooper
on.
asks, "Who is
Now I want to
Cambot?"
give you a sense
That's
of
I
what
Killed
it will
Earl.
look like
I
for
Killed
viewers
Earl
at
is
home
Cambot.
if a candidate whose microphone is off interrupts a candidate whose microphone is on. So I'm standing at one podium, and I'll ask Phil to come in and take the other podium.
This
And
is
so let's
riveting the
say
way they're
I'm
describing
answering
how
a
podiums and
question.
mics
My light
work.
is green, and I'm
Riveting.
speaking. Phil's microphone is off, and his green lights are
Hello.
not illuminated. He's going to interrupt me as I'm speaking, and this is what it will sound like. My volume remains constant, while Phil's
Oh,
interruption
come
can
on.
be
They're both
difficult
senior
to
citizens.
understand.
You think they can actually
Let's
recognize
try the
red lights and
opposite.
green
My
lights?
microphone is now on. Victor's microphone is
But this
off.
is
I'm
great
sorry.
though, because
Sorry, that was a-
I wondered
Me.
if
My
there was
volume
going to be
remains
any like
constant, while
possible
Victor's
way to
interruption can be
you
difficult
know, like kind
to
of off.
understand.
But no, by the
CNN's
time this
production
thing is
team has
halfway through,
shared this
Trump's going to be like
demonstration with
doing
the
Muppet
campaign
hands,
earlier
waving
today, and we're sharing
around
it with
and
you,
shit.
our viewers, so everyone fully understands how
We're just
tomorrow
like
night will
glowering,
work.
like,
Now, we should know.
And I'm sorry,
by
that was
agreeing to
I saw
participate
that
in this
joke with
debate,
red
both
lights and green lights and old
campaigns
people
and
driving, and I could not
have also
resist.
agreed
I
to abide by
apologize.
these
You know,
rules.
I'm
Let's
being
talk about one of the
being
logistical
facetious, so-
details of this, which
Trump
is
comes
that
out
if it's
really,
not
really
your turn to
nervous, and they're
speak
like, "Okay,
as
do
a
you see the green
candidate,
light
then
and the
your
red light?" And he
microphone
just
is going to
screams,
be
"There are
muted.
4 lights!" I'm
I
like,
was thinking
"Easy,
about it, and
bro."
I thought,
Haven't even started. We just
your microphone might be muted, but if you're speaking, the audience may not hear you, but you could still be distracting to the person next to you, whose microphone the audience could hear. I mean,
Yeah,
what do you
that's
think
distracting.
this could create?
He's over there like,
this
"Look
is a
at
really
me.
interesting
Look at me."
experiment in the sense that you're right, because you can't hear me as
what
well.
I would do if
but
I were
people can still
Biden,
hear
I'd
me
play
if I
up on
raise
the
my
old
voice.
thing.
And so
When
just-
he
You're
gets muted and
distracting
Trump's
me too.
talking, they're both on
so,
camera.
so
You just have
one
a
of
thing
the
of cream of
candidates
wheat.
and
You
the
put on
odds
the
are this would be Trump.
the
Try to say
spectacles,
the media's
the
trying
just
to
the half
silence
ones,
me.
you know,
They don't
just
want me to
start
have a
eating,
spirited debate, so they
grinning
turn
at the
my mic
camera.
off so that I can't answer him. I would assume that the format often becomes an issue too. That the candidates will each come in with a strategy. If things aren't going well and you need something to complain about.
Do you
it's
remember
usually
the
about
debate that he
moderator. So
had?
it's
It was
an
between
old-
Trump
an
and
age-old
Hillary, and he
form
was
in
circling her like a
politics. They can
shark.
take a shot. You could ask
Yes!
Chris Wallace.
He was all over the
Trump
stage, and
was
she's
last
like,
night. You could
So
go back
creepy.
before that.
Yeah,
You
his
know?
body
So
language was really
it is
weird. It's
interesting.
like
It's a format that
I think that was the most
we at
exercise he'd
CNN
had in
was
like a
very
couple of
necessary
weeks.
because of just the chaos last time of the shouting over each other. The American people deserve to have answers
During
on
this
all of
23
these
minutes while we're
legitimate
waiting for this,
questions.
I'll probably
But
just so
we'll
you
see.
can hear
I mean,
us,
you
because
go
somebody
in
just
with
mentioned that we
rules,
probably should
but
have like a
these
lip
two
reader on
candidates
here.
agreed
But
to the rules. They could also agree
I'll
to
go ahead
break
and mute this whole
And if that
preamble
happens,
because
that's an interesting
obviously I
challenge
think
for the
that
moderators.
my
You know,
audience and
Jake
I
and
think
Dan are
that
very
we up
talented.
here
They know what they're doing.
understand how
But it is a
debates
challenge
work.
then. Do you say,
And it
no,
wasn't
you
like
signed
we
a
need
paper,
half an hour
you
to go
agree
through
to
the
these rules, or you
rules
say, okay, gentlemen, are
because
you
there's
sure?
like
Because you
3
just ripped up your
rules.
plan. Go for it.
So I'm not,
People
yeah,
say, how are
whatever.
you
But
preparing? I'm preparing by taking questions from you and others. If you think about it, we had a great meeting just
just now in Philadelphia with the at the shop. You saw that with all the wonderful people. We just left Faith and Freedom in D.C., and that was incredible. We had an incredible crowd.
A governor actually telling there that while he's talking about how he prepares, which is to sort of have conversations with people and do interviews, he brings up the crowd and uses the word incredible to talk about crowds twice. I mean, he's going to be feeling it in that room. What do you think about his style of preparation, such that he's always done it in this environment where the mics get cut and he has no audience. He might get very bored in that room. There's only 3 people.
The fucker might fall asleep.
The most important thing for this race, for these candidates,
that would be great if he fell asleep like he did while he's in court.
While he's in court,
just starts ripping
in
farts.
The swing states independent.
I'm just so bored.
And if
maybe that's why they finally agreed to do that. Like, no, we'll mute your mic that way nobody can hear you ripping farts when you pass out while Biden's talking. Because we know you're not going to take notes.
Is Joe Biden too old? Is he wrong on immigration? Is he wrong on wokeness? Is he wrong on crime?
Biden will be talking about like, hey, just look at our record on the economy, and inflation is bad, but it's going down, and they'll cut back to Trump will be up.
It might
Hunter Biden laptop.
We know that he has been preparing for this debate in the way he does, with sort of policy.
January 6th hostages.
Classic, behind the podium.
They're political prisoners. Let them go. But they made a great song for me. It was really great.
Stormy's a whore.
Come in, interrupting President Biden less than he did in 2020 in their first debate.
It'd be hilarious if he actually commits slander against E. Jean Carroll during the debate. So he tries to deny, like, oh, I didn't slander. Like, you did it during the debate, bro. Like, you're a walking lawsuit.
Should I be tough and nasty and just say you're the worst president in history, or should I be nice and calm and let him speak?
I mean, do you think, does he
Jay has reminded me, he sent a link to our coverage
how he feels in the
of this live stream to Jesus is Lord.
As he's going to bed that night and just thinks in his head.
Thank you so much.
I think sometimes he plays around with these things on his own. I think sometimes, as you see, he poll tests it because he thinks it's going to please whatever crowd he's in front of. Whatever's on his mind is often what he does with these crowds, and it could be anything. It could be, he's been poll testing everyone about VP at various fundraisers.
I'll be right back. I'm going to
along the same line.
I'm going to grab a water.
As he was saying that, I think he will be both. I think he will likely interrupt less because I think that's the lesson.
And this is really curious for me, and I know probably y'all out there in the live chat as well, because with no one to pander to, just the moderators there, no one to like play to, how is that going? How is it going to? Is that going to alter his dynamic at all? And I think it will. I think it will have, especially as the debate kind of like as it kind of rages on. I'm really curious how
I wish we had a candidate.
There's not going to be that sense where he can focus on that, and so he's got to like, where's he going to shift his attention? And that impulsivity issue is going to get him in trouble. I think that's my guess.
Our All Over the Map project is at 60 voters and counting across 10 states. Yes, President Biden has his share of true believers.
Biden. Absolutely. I think he's done a great job.
So does Donald Trump.
I liked what happened in our economy for 4 years when Donald Trump.
The numbers show that, and that was what I was saying when you popped away was that without that an audience to focus on, without people, without the like and the groans and the whatever, without that feedback. Will that have an effect on Trump's on pretty much on Trump's behavior? Like that on his, because he needs that dynamic to play off of that energy, that back and forth. Because ultimately he's a con man, he's a showman. That's what he does. But without anyone to play to, is his impulsivity? Is whether he gets bored? Is that impulsivity going to get him in trouble? Where he's going to feel the need to act out like an impetuous child because no one's paying enough attention to him.
Supporters complain.
Well, this will be kind of an example, because I kind of am predicting. I think he'll do better than people expect. But I think that'll be more of an example of
already part of the campaign.
His aides and stuff. That's actually going to be a little bit scarier, right? Because that means he's got aides and he's got professionals in
his handling of the Hamas
and are
I don't think
training him better. They're like reminding him, like, look, you got to nail this, because everybody's thinking that you're going to fly off the handle and be a lunatic. So you really got to like dial this in. You got to nail it.
London just left the Republican Party.
He might,
and registered as.
And again, he might completely flame out, and that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, the vast majority of his speeches, and we'll see, what was it? Dan Shire says Trump does terrible with prepared speeches. He needs the crowd. He's going to be very awkward. And I love that John Oliver pointed out that when you take his speeches, it literally is like if you put in a word like abortion is, and then just hit the next word in predictive text, like that's what his speech patterns are like. Is like predictive text, algorithm is just like, and we put it. It's ridiculous. The whole like nuclear, it was like the nuclear disarmament conversation he had was as if it was predictive text.
Matt Brahodes is a Georgia Christian conservative.
I don't know.
He just starts free associating, and you can tell when he's not in his element, because he starts getting very, very vague.
That would have
The language gets good. Like, it's like he's like quantum leaped into that body, and he's just trying to survive the conversation for the next 4 minutes.
Sam's trying to wing it
about both Biden and Trump. This is a
I'm sorry.
giant test.
The quantum leap. I love quantum leap. I love. I almost called him Archer.
For USA Today, Susan Page.
I love.
Susan
Now I can't think of him as anything but Archer.
Between Mike Pence and Kamala Harris.
Scott Bakula.
Scott Bakula. Thank you. I was like, I love Captain Archer, and I do love Captain Archer because I enjoyed Enterprise.
Reasons that
but
you think going after
the whole big thing of that is that quantum leap gets me with the when he leaps into the body of someone with Down syndrome.
An advantage this season.
And the whole like when he looks in the mirror
because he has a demeanor that doesn't put off voters. Donald Trump can have a demeanor that does put off voters, and also because I think that Biden could have a good night because expectations have been placed pretty low, including by Donald Trump over the last several months, depicting him as feeble and mentally lacking the acuity to be president. So,
and Jefferson, you've heard it already. Trump is kind of like laying the foundation for maybe I'll throw the debate, or maybe like basically trying to soften it. Like if he is to get his ass kicked, if he gets his ass kicked in this, then maybe he just threw it because it's not important anyway. Trump's going to focus on the important stuff. Doesn't need to waste his time with some stupid, silly debate. So he's already trying to put that notion out there in his followers' minds that he's the one in control. So if he wins, if he kicks Biden's ass, he wins. But if he loses, he probably also won. Right?
You're right.
The more just report.
Those kind of
he proved how corrupt the system is and how fake the media is. Maybe he never should have agreed to do this CNN stuff. It's like, but you did.
Take a listen to
but
how
you did.
These two candidates have been talking
about.
Hey,
I killed Earl. Good to see you. Cambot has arrived, everybody. So Cambot's here. Cambot is joining Crow with Tom Servo.
15 million new jobs created in 3.5 years. Unemployment hasn't been this low for this long for 50 years. Wages are rising faster than prices, and now we have among the lowest inflation rates of any country in America, and we're still fighting to lower it even further. We're fighting to lower.
I haven't seen what inflation rates are like in other countries. I know some of them are still pretty bad.
We're just getting started.
I've heard, yeah.
Want to keep it going to level the playing field by making the wealthy begin to pay their fair tax.
The minute crooked Joe Biden shuffles out the door, I will rapidly rebuild the greatest economy in the history of the world. Look, we had the greatest economy in history. Everybody here, where you have a small business or if you had a job, you were getting more than you ever made, and we had no inflation. I will give you low taxes, low inflation, low interest rates, rising wages, growing incomes, and fair trade for the American worker. And we will make energy affordable again by saying, drill, baby, drill.
I mean, in the challenge too is that voters tend to have looked at
Biden
Trump's
that's going to be funny right there because
he
could go after Biden
benefiting
on the left of that and be like, look, you made promises to certain environmental groups, but you're drilling more than ever before. But he can't do that. He's going to end up having to paint Biden as some kind of like hands tied and it's all batteries or nothing kind of thing. It's like we're producing more oil than ever.
A messaging and branding problem more.
That was actually pretty slick what Biden did, releasing our reserves at that strategic moment, or like signing off on the release of our reserves in order to keep prices at the pump low and injecting money back into the. I thought that was brilliant. So like the little strategy did that nobody talked about, in order to try and offset costs at the pump, and while at the same time getting money back into the government, and I think to the tune of like $30 billion. So and nobody mentioned it.
Yeah, we have the safest border in the history of our country.
Crazy. And here's a question: if I'm Crow and you're Tom Servo, okay, and I killed Earl is our Cambot, then who is our Gypsy and who is our Joel?
More importantly, open borders because you have millions of people coming in, and they're coming from all of these places. They're causing.
Joel's the tough one.
Death.
And I don't know about Gypsy either.
For all of the unpredictability.
Well, those are both tough.
This.
Well, and then doesn't somebody get to be the two guys in the observation bay or whatever?
Say
I don't. Okay,
we had solutions on the table.
Who are the people that give us the bad content that we have to watch? Like who are the individuals who are behind that? The evil, the bad guys. Who are the antagonists?
I feel like he needs to be
who give us the primary.
Certainly and should talk about
I'd have to think about
those steps that he's taken over the last few months. In particular, he can talk about the fact that on day one in the Oval Office, he put forth a comprehensive plan, sent it to Congress,
that he has consistently worked on this issue. But I think the big weakness for Trump on this issue is the fact that he scuttled the deal, that he essentially said, I want this as a political issue. People don't like that. The other thing I would say about this that I think is maybe a little counterintuitive, people like the tougher measures, no question, but they don't like a lot of Trump's rhetoric around this issue when he says that immigrants poison the blood of our country and, they didn't like family separation.
That little thing.
There can also be some benefit, I think, for Biden in getting Trump going
Oh,
on this issue.
Comrade
because Trump
Jay
has a
says
tendency to
Pine
say
Creek
things
and
that really
Ding
turn
Dong.
off those moderate voters.
Pine
who are
Creek
gonna
and
be
Ding
decisive
Dong
in
are the
this
ones
election.
that beam us the shitty content that we have to talk about, that we have to watch.
In my case, that's
I think it's
definitely
one of the
true.
best issues, if not the best issue. But do they need to be careful about how they approach it?
I think in some respects, but look, the Overton window has shifted on this issue just in the last 5 years. I mean, always, we've been doing this for a long time. We had always talked about when it came to immigration, there was border security, but there's also some sort of legal status, citizenship conversation. That has been pushed aside because
it always bugs me whenever they talk about immigration and people like Trump and people who follow him are kind of like, yeah, immigrants are poisoning the nation, immigrants are ruining everything for us, and all the Native Americans sitting on their reservations going, really?
They felt they needed to do something on the executive order. They
really
need to go further. If that wasn't the case, they felt they were
tell us about your railroads.
They would need to go on the executive order.
And so again, it reminds me of a line that they're meeting with in Hell on Wheels, the Colomini's character, the railroad guy. He's meeting with a tribe because they want to put the rail through their lands. And it's Wes Studi, and they're like, well, yeah. And he's like, what's so important about this rail and this train again? And he's like, it brings you civilization. And he just looks around, people covered in mud, filth everywhere. Most of them are drunk. He's like, better than what?
For them. I mean, if
everybody's sick and drunk here, like, I don't know, this is such a great thing.
Doing a mock debate and having side-by-side candidates and having people play Biden necessarily, why would you put your candidate in that position? You want to make sure your candidate is preparing for the debate as they are going to communicate on the stage. And so the fact that they have totally different approaches, I probably would imagine, doesn't surprise many Americans. I think we can see day in and day out as they present themselves to the country that they kind of have different approaches about how they go out there and communicate their message. What is the same for them, Wolf, are the enormous high stakes in this debate. They both have a lot of opportunity here, but also great risk on this stage. This is a debate earlier than ever before. And this is an opportunity for them to really focus in their message on those persuadable voters, many of whom have been disengaged, get them engaged and start making an argument that those voters
at this point, if you don't know who you're voting for, like, you're not going to vote or you're dead, right? Like, I mean,
or you have a brainworm and you're part of the brainworm collective that is driving you to vote for brainworms, because there is the brainworm agenda.
I think when you make that decision, it might be well if you would ask yourself, are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
We need
right now, yes,
change in this country.
We are.
That's what I'd like to bring.
If I win,
crime rate is down, economy is up, unemployment is down. Okay, yeah, there's some geopolitical shit that's going on right now, and people disagree with Ukraine and the situation in China, blah, blah, blah. But as far as domestically goes, unemployment is down.
Trump is not in charge.
Crime statistics are down across the entire board, and the economy is up.
Those three moments and many more are the
from
kinds
4
my
years
next
ago
guest has studied
in
in the
2020.
voters'
Yes, we are
reactions to him for more than
definitely
3
better than
decades,
where we
longtime
were.
pollster and
Objectively
communications
better,
strategist
yeah.
Frank Luntz joins me now. And Frank, I mean, you have written this really interesting article today about what actually wins voters over when it's in debates. And shockingly, to those of us on cable news, it's not always what the pundits think is the biggest takeaway.
No, it's very frustrating. In my walk here, I was saying to some of your staff, be very careful who you predict is the winner, because voters see it very differently. They're not trying to score points. They don't care if you trip up on something, and they're actually not focused precisely on every detail. They're looking at the personality. They're looking at the presentation. Do I trust them? Do I like them? Can I see them as president? Is this someone I want to have in my living room every night for the next 4 years? And in the end, it's the reason why Donald Trump lost that debate with Joe Biden 4 years ago, and why he beat Hillary Clinton. And that line there, all the pundits said, oh my God, we're going to be a banana republic. He says he'd throw her in jail. And every network went nuts on him. Our focus group said, oh my God, he's actually going to hold her accountable.
Yeah,
This
someone
is
needs to put a
exactly
bounty out
what
on
we're
that thing
looking
that's on
for in
his head
politics.
because I don't
So
know
he
what
was
it
a
is.
disaster in
I mean, I get
2020.
what he's
is a-
saying,
He was
but
really good
That's a
in
wig, right? It
2016.
is
Well, when
distracting.
you look at
I
those
think,
two
yeah,
moments,
it's
I'm
something.
sure there
It's
were
like
some voters who did not like that moment. This
we need to call that
political
shit. We don't
opponent
need to
clearly
spread.
saying he'd put his opponent in jail because he doesn't like her. But when you actually look at this, you write in this and say that the key moments that will have the greatest impact on the remaining undecided voters, which is obviously what we're all paying attention to here, are those in which the candidates attack each other in defining ways or undermine the political case that each wants to present to Americans. Viewers will quickly decide whether the accusations are fair and the response is effective. I mean, if you were trying to appeal to these independent, undecided voters Thursday night, what does that look like?
Otherwise, it's only 4%. It's only in 3 states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And I'd be asking a rhetorical question, just like Reagan did. Is inflation higher or lower today than it was 4
I
years
will
ago?
point out that what Lund
Is
say
the
there,
border
voters
safer
respond to
or
style
less
more than
safe?
substance.
Do you feel
Unfortunately,
more
that
or
is
less
true
secure
on
if I'm
mass
Donald
for the
Trump?
for like
And if I'm
as
Joe
like the
Biden, do you
population.
really
That's what's
wanna go back to
problematic
that
about that.
chaos? Do you really
But
wanna go back
and it's
to
the
it?
whole
I'm gonna
reason
do that for
why
3
an
or 4
individual like
times.
Andrew
Either
Yang
ask a
did never have a
question
shot because
make a
Andrew Yang,
statement where
if
you know
anybody
the
ever took
public
the
at
opportunity
home
to sit
is
through Andrew
nodding their
Yang's
heads,
like
yes.
215
The
point
problem
plan
is
as to what
Trump
he would
wants to
do,
own
what
Joe
he would
Biden,
do
and he's got
starting
no
day one in the
self-control
presidency.
whatsoever.
That
In Joe
was the
Biden's
kicker,
case,
and
he really
I went
hasn't
through that
figured
thing.
out how to handle the
It was a
ex-president,
mind-numbing
and he's
slog,
not
but it
made the
was
case for
awesome.
his
The
own
problem was
re-election
voters don't want to
as
do
well
that
as he
shit.
could have. The
You know,
economy's
they want to
better
hear the
than people
candidate's going to tell them
realize.
exactly what they
The
want to hear, and that's
situation,
the
the
unfortunate fucking. That's the
legislation
damnable
he's passed,
misery
they
of our
don't know
politics
this.
in
And
this
you know what?
country.
It's not your
And
fault.
hey, Clive Wells,
It's
good
the
to see
president's
you.
fault.
When you're watching a football game and you're there and you can hear the audience, or you're watching it on TV, or you can see the refs and their calls, when you look at this and there's no audience for a moment like that, what Trump said about Hillary Clinton,
Jay's
there
also
would have
told
been
me that
no
he went into
reaction
Atheist
to that
Helpline
inside
and
that
shared a
room if there had
link
been
in the
no
chat
audience.
with
If
our
there's that,
thoughts.
the
for
mics are
this
being cut off,
live
and maybe we'll still see them talking in the 2 shots, but not actually
Yes,
hear
get it
them.
out there.
How much of a difference do you think that'll make?
Huge. It's a big deal. These rules do not help Donald Trump. He was so eager to get Joe Biden into a debate that he said yes to anything. If I'd been advising him, I would have said, don't, not this one. Yes, you want to debate him, but not to these rules. You need an audience. And second, he's so, he has no faith in Biden even being able to complete a sentence. So week after week, he made fun of him. And now he's trying to reverse that. Now he's trying to raise expectations. It doesn't work. If you tell people for months, this guy can't complete a sentence.
Yeah, with a week to go, and you're saying, oh, he's going to be formidable, or this year's, he's going to be jacked up on drugs was 2020's, oh, he's going to have an earpiece, both ridiculous accusations. The other thing, though, is these two men are probably the best known politicians in U.S. history. To see them go up on the stage, everyone knows everything about them. Is there anything really left to say to change voters' minds, do you think?
Not much. 70% of Americans do not want these two people. They're upset that it's Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. In the end, I believe we're going to be voting those final undecided voters, not on the candidate they like, but on the candidate they dislike the least. And that's why our democracy is so challenged right now. We're not happy with our choices, so we're trying to vote for the least worst evil.
CNN's Jeff Zeleny brings us now this look at how much the United States, the world.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people were calling him a dunce. Like they're calling him, once the dunce. But I have to agree with him on that. He does. I mean, that is true. It's like, all the things he's pointing out, but ostensibly that these are failures of essentially how our system has not reinforced how important the political process is in the minds of each generation. It's getting worse and worse and worse. That's why it's all about visualization. It's all about style. It's not about substance. It's all about, whatever inflammatory bullshit gets your fucking dopamine flowing, and not what they're specifically trying to do with the country, the direction of the country, or what their agendas are. It's just
when I think
in that, it's just fucking obnoxious.
He's shut down.
In the Biden-Trump sequel,
what was this? Peter Tony says, do Bridge the Divide, do sports events have audiences? I thought they were crowds or spectators. Agreed. Yeah, spectators, crowds.
And in TV ads.
This election is
yes, I do agree. Daniel Cooper, vote for Cthulhu. Why vote for the lesser evil? Agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
Vote for the superlative.
Exactly. At least you know what you're gonna get. Unending cosmic horror.
From an insurrection and all its fallout to a new fight fight on abortion rights, in the wake of the U.S. Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and a war in the Middle East, to the very stark question of America's role in the world. Yet the economy, inflation, and immigration are still at the center of it all. Trump's record was at the heart of their last debates, even as he sought to deflect.
If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
While those warnings didn't come to pass, Biden's record is now under the microscope, complicating his effort to make it a referendum on Trump.
The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
And America's oldest presidential candidates are even older. Trump 78, Biden 81, with age and fitness for office now a central issue in the race. Public opinion for presidents can be punishing. Biden's favorability has fallen 11 points since 2020, with nearly 6 in 10 Americans holding an unfavorable view. Perceptions of Trump have changed less, with more than half still seeing him in an unfavorable light. Televised debates have long been a storied part of presidential campaigns, with history-making moments for candidates.
There you go again.
Yet this showdown is without parallel. The nation's 45th and 46th presidents, still seeking to define one another in the earliest general election debate in memory, an old duel being fought on new ground.
Well, here we go. Got 1 minute. 1 minute to go.
Oh, it looks like they're already there. Okay.
Do y'all like us in the corner? Or do you like us off to the side as far as the live stream goes? I'm kind of curious because here we look kind of small, but this one, okay, that's kind of equal. Oh no, definitely not that. That's annoying. Or that's a little bit bigger. That one? Do y'all like that one? No, I think this one would probably be better. I think the ones with us down in the corner, I think it'll be a little bit better. That one, so they can actually see the whole thing. And I think if I come over here and if I go full screen, there we go. Go full screen so we can see the whole thing. 5 seconds.
Damn, I don't got a popcorn or chocolate covered almonds or nothing. Should have got a snack.
I want one of them to come out like fucking Goldberg.
Those big fireworks go off the floor.
We'll debate the former
breaking glass in the background.
You got walk-on music for a presidential debate? Shit, yeah.
In the United States and around the world.
Spear, tackle, go.
This is the CNN presidential debate.
That would be funny if they had to calm one of them down. It was a jacked up Joe moment. You know, he's not even really debating. He's just calling out Trump. I'm gonna get you. Man, they really put him on. Put any rumors of him being on something were laid to rest. He was definitely high as a motherfucker that time.
Each will make his case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN.
Oh, Dana. I called her Dana. My bad. Dana Bash.
Okay. Yeah, I call her Dana Bash too.
State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is
look at the two of them.
Facilitate a debate between the two candidates.
As he said it, we're co-moderating. She's like, I am in hell.
Rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determined their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question, and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
I have a feeling by the time Dana's discretion is just going to be, no. Can I have another minute? You cannot.
It's got to be so satisfying. So satisfying to be like,
it will be difficult to understand for viewers at home.
And in the back of her mind, it's just like...
At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight.
So we're definitely not taking tips, taking debate tips from modern day debate on this one. I'm glad. That's a good thing.
By accepting our invitation to debate both candidates,
could you imagine Trump and Biden on modern day debate?
To accept these rules.
I can imagine throwing my headphones against the wall. That's what I would do. Like, no, enough.
Folks, how are you? Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, he doesn't look too jacked up, so that's
And
pretty
please
good.
welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Okay. He's not looking any fresher than Biden, just on the walk. The first impression ain't great.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate.
He just
and let's
kind of
start with
like
the issue
sauntered
that
out
voters
like,
consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The
oh
economy
no, he
collapsed.
shouldn't say that.
There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is we're going to make that available to everybody.
I forgot about that one.
All Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any
sure
one
did.
term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can. You
Am I
want
allowed
to
to Not entirely accurate,
Well,
but
I'm going to
that's,
ask you a follow up. You can
that's
do
a
whatever
gut
you want
shot.
with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure
Stupid.
that doesn't drive prices even higher?
Not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like
It
China,
drives prices
and
higher.
many others. In all fairness to China, it's going to.
He
just
still
force
doesn't
them
get
to
that
pay
it
us a
doesn't
lot of
work.
money,
You
reduce our
can't
deficit
do it without
tremendously,
domestic.
and give us a lot of
You
power
do
for other
that to
things.
make the foreign
He didn't make a
competitor stuff
statement.
more
The only thing he
more
was right about is
expensive.
I gave you the
Mercantilism
largest
works, but
tax
if you
cut
don't
in
have the
history.
domestic
We did the
supply
largest
in
regulation
place
cut in
to
history. That's
meet
why
the
we have all
demand,
the
people
jobs.
just end up
And the
buying
jobs
the more
went down and
expensive
the
shit
bounce
that gets
back, and he's
imported
taking
in.
credit for bounce
I
back
don't.
jobs. You
He
can't
does
do
not
that.
get this.
He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst
No, they didn't.
administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is
As far as the
concerned, I was getting
spending
out of
went, I mean,
Afghanistan.
both
We were
both
giving out dignity,
both administrations
respect,
have spent a lot of money
with
on public
power.
spending, but
He got
there
out.
was
It
a
the most
there was a
opposite
pandemic.
thing in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we're
No,
able
they
to
don't. They were talking
better than
about.
just about any other
They were
country.
already talking
But
about
we
warning
spurred
signs
the
of
tax
recession
cuts.
before the
Now,
pandemic hit.
when we cut the taxes,
There
it
was
a
rumblings of that
corporate
already.
tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before. And we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody
does not.
else had. We got hit with COVID.
Shit.
We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great.
Look at the look on his on the therapeutics. Is he
under
talking
his
about the monoclonal
even
antibodies?
though we had
He got
largely
access
fixed
to
it.
those when he
More
got
people
crapped
died
up.
under
Nobody
his
else, very few
administration
people got
than our
monoclonal antibodies, I think,
administration, and we
until
were
like
right in the middle of it,
2023.
something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine.
The
which is
mandates
the
happened
thing
under
that
his
people
administration.
most
There was
objected
something-
to about the vaccine.
His
And he did a
last
very
year
poor
was the
job,
first year
just
of the
a very poor
pandemic, and a lot
job.
of those
And I
mandates
will
at
tell
state
you,
levels
not
came
only
out
poor
under
there,
his
but throughout
administration.
The entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization
Nation?
of his election, trying to go after his political opponent. All of the things he's done, we've become
Okay,
like
now
a
he's just
third
gish
world
galloping.
nation.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to
Yeah,
immigration.
that's what they did. They
later
came in here and
this
just wrecked
block.
up the
President
place.
Biden, I want to give you an
My
opportunity
street's on
to
fire.
respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, he got $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What?
Well, he's right.
Okay,
He
that's
did
a
beat
senior
Medicare.
moment.
He beat it to death, and he's destroying
Yeah.
Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to
They can't get on
single-handedly
Social Security.
destroy
Social
Social
Security. It's a
Security.
lie.
These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe
They
out
can't. Even
Social
if they wanted to,
Security.
they
He will
couldn't.
wipe out
They'd have to
Medicare.
change a
So
bunch
he
of
was
laws
right.
to be
Let
able to
me
do that.
finish that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries,
What?
they do nothing for
How
us.
is this
What this man
fucking
has
relevant?
done is absolutely
Exactly.
criminal.
Oh my Lord.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats,
they
Republicans,
didn't.
liberals,
No, they
conservatives.
didn't.
Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders.
Was it like an
And what I did is
80%
I put three
like
great Supreme Court
against?
justices on the court.
And religious
and they
leaders,
happened to
the
vote in
religious leaders
favor
that
of
wanted it
killing
reverted,
Roe v. Wade
they knew
and
getting the
moving it
Roe v.
back to
Wade,
the states.
Roe
This
v.
is
Wade
something that
reverted back to a
everybody
states
wanted.
level issue,
Now, 10
allowed
years
them
ago
to
or so,
eventually
they started
take a
talking
federal
about how many
ban,
weeks and how many this and
implement
getting
that,
into other
and
things,
hopefully
but
get
every
that
legal
supported by a
scholar
Supreme Court,
throughout the world,
making that the
the
national
most
law of the
respected,
land. It's just a way to
wanted it
wind it
to
back.
the states. I did that. Now
If you
the
wind
states
back what's
are looking
recognized as a
out. If you look at
constitutional right and leave
Ohio, it was a
constitutional
position that
rights up to
was
individual states,
an end
you
result.
don't
It
have
was a little bit more
constitutional
liberal
rights.
than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided.
Right.
Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most
Where?
dangerous place anywhere in the world. Consider the most dangerous place anywhere in the world.
Interesting
And he
fact, like
opened it up
when
these killers are
crime
coming
was
into
going
our
up in some of the cities during the
and they are
pandemic,
raping and killing
like I
women.
think there was 4 or
And
5
it's a
examples of where that trend was not happening, where it was going the other way.
Right.
Were in border towns that were predominantly immigrants. Their crime rate was either
thing. As
stable
far as the
or going
abortion's
lower.
Gotcha.
It is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have.
And the big kicker that, and I paused it real quick, but the big kicker on this, but I mean, obviously, I don't know if that immediately in response to what Trump said, Biden should have brought up the fact that the direct fallout of Roe v. Wade was an increase in infant and maternal mortality rates pretty much across the board. That we have seen jumps in all the states that have the harshest abortion laws, whether they're flat out bans or they're 6-week minimums or whatever. We have seen increases in infant and maternal mortality rates in those states, which is something should have been like that should have been first and foremost the direct fallout.
No legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last.
Well, some of the founders might have.
Making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So that has never fucking been a thing. The baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen. Democrat or
it's
Republican,
never
nobody
happened.
Wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Under
Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want.
You can't.
We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals.
It would be a radical thing if it were true.
51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years. And it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? In fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative.
Well, we'll see what happens. Anytime the United States has ever did an across-the-board ban on anything. Okay, which you thought we would have learned our lesson when we did that with freaking prohibition, but apparently we did not. So,
is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden,
Moving on.
A record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed me endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves
Have a good dinner, Anamorphic.
When he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Fuck you.
We had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it.
No, he didn't.
He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people.
No, he didn't. He took flack for leaving Title 42 in place for the first 2 years of his administration.
Insane asylum. Terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come.
What the fuck
is he?
I got to pause it again because it's the same fucking talking points that got him elected in 2020. Nothing has changed, and now we're more aware of it. So it's like,
well, now it's lazier because before it was this weird Mexico is sending all their worst people here to somehow undermine the country, which was the goofiest fucking thing. Because people were like, well, he just said that all Mexicans are rapists. Like, no, to be fair, he didn't say that. He just said all the ones here are rapists because those are the ones that Mexico sent here. So it was just as bad, but you had to be more, you had to, parse it, and I guess grant him the benefit of the doubt. He was being a bigger shithead than he actually was. But now he's doing this where he's just like, oh, there's terrorists here and they're all crossing the border. Like the most anywhere. What, citation, please. I mean,
yes. Daniel Cooper says citation fucking needed. And it's like Jeff C, citation needed, orange turd. Yes. Where are you getting this information?
Everywhere, all over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history.
And it got overturned.
In that final couple of months of my presidency.
Almost every time he did one of those, they got overturned. Title 42 is the only one that stuck because of the pandemic. And it stuck so well that the Biden administration kept it in place for 2 fucking years. It didn't come off until 2023. On top of that, I think the only one that actually took out of any of the proclamations that he made about banning people was when he designated limited numbers of people or no people from certain countries that had terrorists. Because when he initially tried just the Muslim ban, that didn't fly. That got overturned. So, yeah.
Who is great. And by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border.
Did he just call him fucking Brandon?
Just called him fucking Brandon.
There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
There hasn't been a caravan since his run.
Killed 3 under his administration. Killed an Al Qaeda person come in and his administration. Kill 3 American soldiers. Kill 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people. That's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
Thank you.
Trump,
call him out.
On the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Say goodbye to our goddamn infrastructure. Yep. Okay, just going to throw that out there right now.
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border.
It's crazy. The crime wave with all the crime numbers going the other way. It's just crazy.
It's shocking.
Insane and very stupid policies. People are coming in and they're killing our citizens.
at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it.
That is a bald-faced motherfucking lie. That
We
is
do
a
not-
straight up.
It is not called migrant crime.
This is some shit he's pulling from his rallies, where the crowd reacted to the migrant crime thing that he was labeling it. So
Biden migrant crime. They're killing our
Biden
citizens
migrant.
at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and he just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know.
I want people to
He
see the
opened
banner.
The borders.
So.
Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care.
It's the same repeated bullshit.
That moldy talking point. I mean, it needs to go away. The one place that was a 4-star hotel, I think, was on the point of being condemned. It had been sitting vacant, so they grabbed it and they opened it up. If one of the ones that I think was open, it wasn't even entirely clean, but they just grabbed it, opened it up because it's a roof. You know, it's a roof to shelter them under. I can't even remember what city that's in. Yeah, the right wing has been running with that. Like, well, they had the money to put them up in a 4-star hotel, like former 4-star hotel. It's a derelict. Like, don't put your boner away. It's not that sexy a spot. Like, Jesus, I want to go to a 4-star hotel. Like, not that one.
And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress. All of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in.
Shut him
It's a very
down.
sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day. And I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've noticed
that was not. You were recorded.
Yeah.
Notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up. And he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said, it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up.
It's from an article from The Atlantic.
Intelligence agents are made up.
I've got it right
just
here.
Like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't.
Really?
It came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up.
Oh, there it goes. Now we're on to Hunter. So we knew that he was going to somehow try to inject that shit. Somehow now he's gotten from his behavior at the World War II memorial to Hunter Biden's laptop. That's the logical line. So,
yeah. Oh, they think that I'm a jerk. You heard of this one jerk named Hunter?
Like the suckers and losers.
To quote Quaid,
apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it. Period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander in chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him.
Well, technically,
So
that is what you call him.
And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when
is he going to address the question?
And he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost.
Oh, why did you fire him?
Fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated.
And Trump coordinated
we left people behind too.
That
we left
entire
American citizens
that
behind.
rollback was
When
entirely
Putin
him.
saw that, he said, "You know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take my." This was his dream. I talked to him about it. His dream. The difference is he never would have.
He'd moved on Crimea before we left Afghanistan. He's just being stupid.
Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why?
They weren't
Because the
invaded.
land
It was a
was
terror
broke with
attack.
me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
Yeah, that's like complete and utter complete and utter horse shit.
Terror attacks. Just go to the Google machine.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. Wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
if
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think.
Well, no shit, but it's a freaking war. But it's Putin and Zelensky.
So Putin's terms are completely rejectable. They're totally disagreeable. But we should have invested $200 billion in aid to Ukraine, because then Putin would have just rolled over them, and then we wouldn't have to be dealing with his terms, I guess. Is that his fucking logic? This baby brain psycho?
And yes, Tony, we did see that Biden did confuse. He did switch up Trump and
There's
Putin.
ever been anything like it.
Yeah,
Every
he did.
time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending.
So
on this
Zelensky's
war,
a grifter.
and we shouldn't be spending. It should have never happened. I will have that war.
Agreed. It shouldn't have happened.
between
Putin shouldn't have
and
invaded.
Right.
As president-elect, before I take office on January 20th, I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them
Bingo.
weapons.
Daniel Cooper just pointed that out.
And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East.
Good.
In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel? We're finding the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're 2 different things.
Unfortunately.
Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Okay.
You're probably being very diplomatic there.
We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent $100 billion or maybe more than that,
2
less
oceans
than
separating
us.
us.
Why doesn't he call them? So you got to put up your money like I did with NATO. I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location. Because
I'm sorry to interrupt him on that, but obviously he doesn't understand the mechanics of what it's not. We're not taking like bags of money, like giant bags with dollar signs, and handing them to Zelensky. That's not so that he can spend it however he wants. That's not the way that is playing out. So, and he's trying to frame it that way because that's the way the vast majority of the people that support him are thinking in these very cartoonish terms. So it's complete nonsense.
We have an ocean in between. You got to ask them as far as Israel and Hamas. Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have
maybe not
alliances as well. There may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in
I do
Europe?
want to point out, if you can hit pause, I misspoke. There's not two oceans between us and them. There's two bodies of water. I mean, you got the Atlantic, and then you got the Med, right? Like, agreed, there's a big distance, but the idea that like it's such a far-flung place, like it was not such a far-flung place for Trump to insert himself into the politics of getting what was it that he did? He got the that temple built, or he moved the U.S. embassy, right?
Yeah,
I think that was one of the first things that he did. You know, he was constantly sticking his thumb on the scale over there, and now he's just, you know what? You know, they're not. To say that Biden is not a sufficient ally of Israel, the Israeli government, is insane. Insane.
Have Putin continue to go into NATO. We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations, because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time? And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Okay, before he addresses January 6th, I got to address something in the chat as well. So everybody in the chat, we got 110 people watching right now. I'm going to try and make this really, really fast so we can get back to the debate. I have mods in the chat, and my mods know what they're doing. And if you do flirt or if you get close to violating TOS, then the mods will shut that down, okay? I trust my mods. I've selected them very, very carefully. They're, so if you got a problem there, I mean, I'm sorry, all right? But if you flirt with that or they feel you're getting too close, they're going to shut that down because we don't want to violate TOS here. Otherwise, you are allowed to voice your opinion. Okay, but you can't get that for you. But I'm going to leave it to the mods to handle it. There's too many things going by in the chat for me to catch them all. So that's why those individuals are there. Okay, so if they mute you or if you say something, I trust their judgment. Okay, so there you go. That's all I'm going to say on that.
I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. That what happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership.
This isn't even close to an answer.
Horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and
You're
square.
running on that,
You
man.
have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your...
I knew Tapper had to fucking read. So my question was this.
constitutional
This is
oath
so
through your
embarrassing.
actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again.
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh,
Filmmaker?
no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this because I
You
offered
were!
10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her.
Read this right here. This is from AP News. This is a fact check. So, claim House Speaker Nancy Pelosi blocked the National Guard from coming to the Capitol during the January 6th insurrection. The assessment, it's false. Speaker of the House Pelosi does not direct the National Guard. Further, as the Capitol came under attack, she and the Senate Majority Leader called for military assistance, including the National Guard. And several politicians were like already working on this particular angle. The decision on whether to call the National Guard to the Capitol is made by the Capitol Board, Police Board, which is made up of the House Sergeant at Arms, the Senate Sergeant at Arms, and the Architect of the Capitol. They make that decision, not Pelosi. So he's still running with that ignorant horse shit.
Fuck.
I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. You know, they've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are.
I think only one court adjudicated that he did it.
And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that there could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing.
So you're basically saying, I'm sorry to deal like this. He's basically saying that the lie that Nancy Pelosi was in charge of that, but he fired at the crowd prior to the January 6th incident. That went down. He failed to do that. But when Portland was going on and other areas, he did call them in and ended the conflict because of what he did. But he did not do that on January 6th. So once again, not addressing the subject at hand. Okay. But shifting something else. Like he's literally admitting that he could have called the National Guard in or the military and shut down January 6th before it turned into what it turned into. So,
and getting back to Biden's point where he said there was scores of cases, I thought it was only one. We were both wrong, but Biden was exaggerating a little bit. It was 15 cases overseen by 9 different judges appointed by Republican and Democratic administrations. They have not minced words in declaring that Trump was the central cause of the January 6th, 2021 insurrection, echoing the findings of the bipartisan January 6th Select Committee. So, yeah, he's been more accurate than Trump so far.
Right.
Unselect committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats. They destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on.
He did that same facial shit
and all
during Hillary
every
debates.
One of those who were convicted is turned over desks.
He's trying. I think, is he going for blue still?
The
Like,
idea that those people are
not
patriots.
sure.
Come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, "Will you denounce the Proud Boys?" He said, "No, I'll tell them to stand by." The idea he's refusing. Will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last
they should have
month,
made
you
him
said if
answer that.
reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the select committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation.
That's not what he said.
My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted.
He's
Could
not
have
on
been
the debate
convicted
stage, and he's
probably
not running
numerous
for
other
president.
times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything.
That's not what Biden was there for.
The prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man,
This
you're
is
lucky.
crap
You're lucky.
conspiracy
I did nothing
Looney
wrong.
Tune
We
shit.
had a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one.
It is a
two,
lie.
The idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No
His
president.
facial expressions are.
No president in our history.
It's like talking to a spoiled
Number
kid.
three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? What are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one.
You
Number
did.
two,
That was established by court.
Started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy.
Yes.
Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. he's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides." What American president would ever say?
Going back to Charlottesville,
Nazis
this is
coming out of fields,
one of the hitting the greatest hits.
Same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas, were fine people. This is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he did kill Hitler. So
let's also, the interesting thing is that they talk about the fact that like Biden or the Trump supporters and stuff after he was convicted, I mean, they went out of their way to really raise money for him. And he did. He racked in like $53 million
right
within like a 24-hour period. But Biden racked in a little over $8 million. And they really didn't say much of anything. They put out, I think, one emailer, that was about it. They took a really subtle approach to it. And they still ended up making $8 million off something they really didn't flag that much. So, yeah.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out, because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see
the worst president
all over the place. Every anchor.
Did he say that he made up the Charlottesville?
As debunked.
He literally claimed that he just fabricated the whole Charlottesville event.
Is that what he said?
I guess the story there. Yeah, it's just like it's.
You want to bounce it back about 10 seconds?
Where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunk. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why?
I'm gonna jump in there. Like, that's one thing that it's kind of like, it kind of like freaks me the fuck out. I don't know why, or frustrates shit at me, is why fucking why Pence has not stood up and said something. But then again, it may be his lack, like his silence may be, words enough, in that respect.
Yeah.
They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
I posted a link in the live chat too. It's from a YouTuber, a TikToker named Kat Abu, and she did like a 30-minute video talking about his claims, because Snopes did a debunk, a fact check, kind of sides with Trump. Trump didn't say that there were good people on both sides, and it's like this really it's worth watching. Yeah. The woman that wrote that article for Snopes is getting quite a bit of backlash for that one.
Unfucking believable says, because Pence has about as much spine as a fern. Agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
A fern might be a little bit more stable. Yeah.
A bit more stable, just like I rarely have I seen someone so spineless in everything they did. But while we're on this little commercial break right here real quick, Anamorphic Mind for $2, $2 Freedom Dollars, thank you so much, says, Kindle that shit. Yes, that's the new phrase. Kindle that shit. It's going to get legs, man. I'm telling you.
Have you hit live to like bump it up? Because we've taken some pauses.
We have. Let me see. Oh yeah, it's currently going on. So, but real quick, since I kicked it off, since I started it, let's jump to this. Thank you, Anamorphic Mind. Thor Rasmussen has been a member of the Godless Army for 22 months. Thank you for the support, Thor. I do appreciate that. Paul of Scotland for 19.99 pounds says, "How come the interviews don't fact check Don Van shits and pants?" And I guarantee you. Yeah, it's an excellent question, and to call him out like that, I totally get what you're saying there. Paula Scotland again for 19.99 pounds. Thank you so much for the support. But it's Trump that has Mein Kampf on his bed table. Probably. I wouldn't be surprised. So let's jump over to it. I don't want to miss anything.
Let's talk about persistent challenges you both faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while Black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are in prison.
She seems kind of quiet.
5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. In addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those childcare protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest was forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all of the other, all this money that's been thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting,
they never passed a Green New Deal.
The fact is that his big kill on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking Black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back, 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs.
I don't know that that's true that there was zero
communities,
inflation,
including minority communities.
Yeah, there was, but he's got a point there. It's a bit of an embellishment, but yeah, the economy was so damn. I mean, it's like it was there, and the problem was that the worst of it had yet to hit because these things don't happen overnight. It takes time to catch up, and so the wave of inflation that was going to hit from what Trump did with his pandemic response and giving basically money everywhere like that. That's basic fucking economics.
We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, if the ACA has increased, I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again. And they're going to try again if they win. We find ourselves in a position where
I don't know why he's shaking his head. He's tried that.
You're not doing it. We put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you.
Malfeasance.
Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the highest
this is going to be
year of
great.
recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police.
No.
How close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name. And he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it. And now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
Also, I just want to say real quick, for anybody watching, law enforcement agencies don't endorse politicians. Usually the police unions do. And as far as I know, from what I can find, this is from April 4th, so I don't know if another one's come on. He's gotten one endorsement, Trump has, by the board of the International Union of Police Associations. Oh, no, two. And by the Florida Police Benevolent Association. So he's gotten two unions that have endorsed him. So that's that. I mean, saying that every law enforcement agency is backing him is a bit much. I mean, cops do tend to overwhelmingly vote Republican, so we'll see.
And as president, to slow the climate crisis.
Yes. So let's try to answer the question.
Absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air. And we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have those. They don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing what any white student can do. They just have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He
did the
signed
opposite.
Paris Peace Accord,
Yeah.
Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change. And he didn't do a damn thing about it. He must undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're
Well, it's
destroying
probably
our
swollen
country.
or something.
They're taking over our
Enlarged.
hospitals.
Yeah, it's got an
They're
enlarged
taking over
heart.
Social
My
Security.
heart's big.
He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
Oh, so he's
Please,
going.
Lord.
That's
The
horseshit. Yeah.
idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to? The United States can't get its under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make
Increase
the
the
very
cap.
wealthy begin to pay their fair share.
Amen.
Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And that's what, and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where I talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia.
I guess he would
Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country and they're putting them onto Social Security.
They can't get Social Security, you fucking moron.
In our hospitals. They're taking
He's
the
completely
place of our
unfit.
citizens there.
This guy
What
should
they're
not
doing
be
to the VA,
elected
to our
dog
veterans is
catcher.
Unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing. And it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said.
Yep.
He was the one standing with
Good
Trump
catch.
when he said it. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession. And inflation is going
You
to
brought that up.
go up.
You cited that.
Worst president in history.
I'm glad he's bringing it up now.
Presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care.
I'm sure they're all
which many American
socialists.
families struggle to afford. President Trump, both
They're
you
not.
and President Biden have tried to address this issue. But the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And
This
if
is
he
a
said
terrible
that's why he
format.
made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected. Much
Good.
more so
Tapper.
than him.
Dana,
The other
come
thing is,
on.
he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good.
That's
I fired
'cause
a lot of the top
You
people at
appointed
the
them.
FBI, drained the swamp.
He appointed
They were
them,
no
said they
good.
were the best
Not
people,
easy to
turned
fire
around
people.
and
They
it
pay
turned
the
around,
price for
fired
it.
them, and
But
said they
were
were
no good. I
shit.
inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there.
I
He was
gotta
no
get a
good. I fired him. This
Shit,
guy hasn't
you
fired
say
anybody.
you
He never
established
fires-
your own cabinet.
He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million
Can we
people,
get back to child
many
care?
from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He's the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's
Child
destroyed
care
our
is the
country.
Subject.
Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He
The amount of turnover, his turnover rate for his A team, the cabinet appointments was 92%.
Like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have
child
a country
care
left
was
anymore.
the
That's how
question.
bad it is. He is the worst in history by
Still
far.
on the table.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world.
So no
The
child
finest
care.
in the history of the world.
So
no one thinks we're weak. No one
So no child
wants
care.
to screw around with us.
No
Nobody.
child care for anyone.
Number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's
He
not
beat
a-
out
that's
Andrew
not
Jackson,
conjecture.
and it's pretty
You can argue
impressive.
they're wrong.
you
but
know?
that's
It's
what they
amazing.
voted.
Yeah, that
The
guy, and that
idea
guy was a
that he is
murderer.
doing anything
Right,
to
just
deal
murdering
with
people.
childcare. He did for virtually nothing to childcare. We should significantly increase the childcare tax credit.
Thank
we should
you.
significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President
childcare
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make childcare more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And
It's not showing.
if I'm given another
Was
4
it from
years, I will be
Newsmax?
the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an
Biden
economy
actually
like
addressed the
us. Nobody
childcare
ever cut
point.
taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before.
The money has to come from somewhere, you fucking moron. You can't just do what you did and not have economic repercussions. In order to solve it, the taxes have to come back up. That's the reality. It's fucking economics.
There's another thing that I think that needs to, because nobody wants to track it, but like, so you had a pretty decent economy, then you get a pandemic that hits everybody. You got employment goes sky high, and people are sheltered in place. There's nothing happening. Then you have to start publicly spending. He had to start publicly spending in that last year of his administration, after he hit all those tax cuts, right? And so you've got Wall Street loved it. It juked the market. They loved it. Wealthy people get even wealthier. Then during the entire pandemic, wealthier people got even wealthier magically through the magic of inequality and things like compound interest and stuff. So while you had public money going into those things and then nothing to offset that, of course you're going to have inflation. But one of the things that they never talk about in terms of like what drove that inflation was you have people that still have demand, right? Now they're trying to choke back demand by raising interest rates, but you have a huge cohort of very wealthy people who can afford to buy lots of shit regardless of the interest rates you charge.
Right.
So on top of so basically it gets more expensive for everybody else. But you can feel this, like if you make $75,000 to $100,000 a year, other than your taxes, you start falling out of touch with the tensions that somebody who only makes like $40,000 a year makes, or worse, $25,000 a year. Money starts working differently. You have a little bit more, as long as you're being frugal with it, and not going crazy with credit cards. But for every time that increases, you get somebody who's just in the billionaire class, a single digit billions, or the tens of millions of dollars even. There's a universe of differences between those two people, but they don't feel this shit. They're completely insulated from it. And they have an enormous amount of dead money that doesn't get used. And what does get used drives this shit. Plus, companies were basically like, you know what? We can raise prices just to do it. How many? What was the company that just came out that admitted, we were just raising the prices on stuff to see where it would? Oh, it was 2 of the grocery store chains, and they had a meeting. I can't remember if it was the Kroger chain or if it was Walmart. Basically realized they've basically been kind of following the trends, and everybody's just been ticking prices up. And then they started finding out that customers are not going to their store anymore. They're seeing a huge drop off in participation in that. Yeah. So now they're like, oh, okay, so we just have to keep prices where they are and maybe kind of start to slowly roll them back. It's just a lot of it. It's very, very complicated, but they never addressed any of this shit. He's just saying, oh, Biden made inflation bad. No, the pandemic made inflation bad. You couple that with a massive tax cut to the wealthy and then a huge influx of public money being handed to people to cover their rent and stuff, you're going to get a little inflation from that. Fuck me. And he took credit for giving people that money.
And I see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, fact of the matter is,
Everybody except the 100, the 154 scholars that were surveyed placed Trump as the worst. So everybody knows it except those 154 presidential scholars. No, they didn't get the memo.
I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming in the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that were imported. Number two,
that's probably conservative. That's probably low.
Where he talks about how he has not raised, he somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You have the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any
he looks like an angry orangutan.
We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment?
He's going to close the border.
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest
opioid
deficit
epidemic.
with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate.
Fucking
he gets
track,
money from
oldie.
China.
Come on,
I
track,
think
Gramps.
or something. But do you
Get
notice he
back
never took
on
out
the
my
right
tariffs
track.
because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the
Remember, he was
tariffs
going to
because
save. He was
can't,
going to
because
save
it's too much
automotive,
money.
and
But he's got the largest
Youngstown,
deficit in
Youngstown,
the history
Ohio,
of
closed
our
its GM
country.
plant. He's just
got
like,
the worst,
oops.
The worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
But they're doing it in a tough way that Trump
you have
admires. He loves you.
67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country in every way. And then we had to get tough, and it was the drugs pouring across the border.
We were kidding.
But there you go.
Started to increase. We got great equipment.
Immigration.
We bought the certain dog. That's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen. The way they can spot it. We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers. Have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways. They don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl. These big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border.
Technology and infrastructure
that deal
funding. I get that.
Republican colleagues said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had
which
so many things that
made
we
the
had done.
rate
Hard
of
negotiations with
return
Mexico, and I got it all
attempts
for nothing.
skyrocket.
It's just like when you have a hostage, we always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, the Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars.
What are you going to do about fentanyl?
I will have him out.
What is
very
what
quickly.
the fuck does this
As soon
have
as
to
I
do
take
with
office,
it?
Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's probably asking for billions and
Are they getting
millions of
graded
dollars
on this?
because
Will there be a
every
test
time.
afterward for all
We
the
had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 50.
Can you imagine if these were essay questions and they gave these?
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's
I
turn to
award you
concerns
no
that voters
points.
have about each of you. President Biden, you would be
So they're just
86
they just gave
at
up.
the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done.
It's
I've
not
turned around
not
the
wrong.
horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million.
This is where I would
jobs,
send up
300,000
all the
manufacturing
amazing
jobs,
people working
more
with me
investment in
and the
America,
team that I have in
over
place, the
billions of
minds that
dollars
I've
in
assembled.
private
That's where I
investment
would go.
Yeah, president's only as strong as their team, and it's an office, not a man. Blah blah blah. By the way, this sick fuck.
The whole idea.
And
Computer chips used to have 30% of the market. We invented.
he
those
hates
chips,
veterans. Thinks
and
they're
we
suckers
lost
and
it.
losers. Just
Because
keep
he was
hammering that
sending
one.
People to find the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product. So I went to
Not
South
lying.
Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs they call that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over.
They
the world.
will create significant jobs.
President
It takes
Biden,
a
you have
while to build
40
them.
seconds
Yeah.
left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters.
We're
to,
good,
Putin,
but
et
I
cetera.
think
They
I
don't
think the
want
Prime
us
Minister of
going
New
on.
Zealand would be like, I'm happy
you.
right where I am.
Former
Thank you very
President
much.
Trump, to follow up, you would
Not
be
trading
82
places.
at the end of your second term.
Not for all
What
the
do you say to
kangaroos in
voters who
Australia.
have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them.
Well.
We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do.
And I got to point this out. He
hey.
actually, when he was talking about this in one of his rallies, he actually forgot. He actually messed up the name of the doctor who had supposedly administered them.
Ronnie
Called him, like,
Johnson.
yeah, Ronnie
Instead
Johnson.
of
It was
Ronnie
like-
Jackson. Yeah.
It was like, I did so good at my cognitive test. Dr. Ronnie Johnson. I was like, that's not his name. So I'm sorry.
Good. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have
His
to be
own club.
quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor.
Got it right.
And then I took another
Got
one,
it
similar
right.
one.
Good. Good
And
for
both-
him.
One of them said they'd never
Yeah,
seen
snag
anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's
It's all bullshit. It doesn't matter.
Just take a look at what he says he is, and Take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. You can do it.
It's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Is this really, guys?
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you
Took
swing.
2 strokes off your handicap. Come on. No one gives a fuck.
We're hung on golf, really?
To a specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something.
I gotta point out, it's fucking infuriating how he will frame that the police were just ushering them in. They're like this. People did not want massive bloodshed in the Capitol. Okay,
Right.
They didn't. Eventually, when they got security to a point where they could control things, yes, they pretty much let them run, and that's because we don't want. Number one, we don't want mass casualties in the fucking Capitol building. And 2, think of the optics of what it would look like if the DC police and whoever is out there providing security just starts mowing down citizens in the Capitol building. I don't care if I mean, come on, dude. We're trying to avoid loss of life. They're going to be like, oh, well, they just let them in like it's no fucking big deal. No, they did that so that people wouldn't fucking die.
Yeah.
Or no more people than did, because I remember that, seeing that one woman get shot on live television. So
yeah,
it's, the fucking twisting shit. Sorry.
I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again.
How come you couldn't during your first one? Oh, the pandemic.
Nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His
snatched failure from the jaws of victory.
His military policies are insane. They're insane.
What, does this
These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done, what they've done. Because we're a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might.
What?
Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. Not going to play games with me.
You-
He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this with? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old.
Okay, he's rambling at this point. This motherfucker actually thinks that a hardened, seasoned KGB agent, legit KGB agent, is going to listen to it fears him in any way? None whatsoever. Yeah. They want him in the presidency because he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
They want that. Like Putin's scared of me. What the? Because they won't do when I'm in charge. Fuck that. Oh.
They're going to do, he's going to do even more.
Stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were president.
The question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless?
Yes,
of
the question at hand. Thank you.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be
he was
very
talking
happy
about
to be
running
someplace else,
while
in a
he
nice
was denying that he
location
lost.
someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Unfortunately,
let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local. None. But you continue to provoke.
I feel like The Big Short.
Lie.
Zero.
Somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There's no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
And with that, it's time for a commercial. Holy shit.
Fucking hell.
Dana and Jake are both like, well, we both picked the wrong week to stop heavy drinking.
All right, man, oh man, oh man. So I want to make sure, because we are a bit behind on the actual live, so I want to give people an opportunity to grab something to drink or grab a smoke or do whatever. If you have to use the restroom, we're going to leave that. So I'm going to jump back here in a moment. Just make sure to take care. If anybody needs to step away for a second, or if you need to, Jefferson, go for it, and we'll take that opportunity. So far, but if you're not, but so far, this has just been, I mean, in my personal opinion, overall, it's a shit show. You know, not the moderation that I would want if somebody, yes, Daniel Cooper, I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue. Absolutely. So, yeah, obviously, you know, Tapper and, time for a snacky snack. Tapper and Dana are not doing what I think they should do, is like keep them on target, interrupt if you have to. That's what moderators are supposed to do, is to keep the interlocutors on point, and that is. But then again, it could be that mentality of CNN where they just like, just let him go, give him enough rope, give him the rope he needs to hang himself. If he doesn't answer the question, it may be the optics play that if you keep having to remind him what the question was, then that may be more effective than just interrupting him and looking like you're trying to control the flow of the conversation. So I see it working both ways. One's aggressive, one's passive. I understand that. So.
Yeah, I think that the format needs to be tweaked a little bit because it doesn't. Yeah. It's just kind of made it boring. And the thing that it was supposed to do is like, okay, this is going to keep them on target and answering the question, focusing on the question they were just saying, but they're still just responding back and forth. unless the moderators are like, nope, you don't get to do that. Like that should have been more explicit. Like you're not going to get to do that. Like if they want to respond, they have to ask the moderators, and the moderators have to okay it. Otherwise, we're moving on. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, but at the same time, they're probably like, hey, if something does start to dust up a little bit there, they start to, it's looking like a Donnybrook might occur. That's always good for ratings. So let's
ratings. Yeah.
Let's let that play out. See if the old, Gramp on Gramp violence happens. CNN can scoop everybody.
Octogenaric violence.
Yeah.
All right.
Step away for just a bit.
Okay, go for it. So, obviously, your commentary down there, definitely leave them in the comments, whatever. I see the live chat flying along and a lot of great comments. I try to catch him as I'm seeing him. But while he stepped away for a moment, let's check out these starred comments. We got some super chats and stuff coming in. I want to make sure you guys get covered. Yahooligan for 2 Canadians. That Canadian, I believe. He says, here's some childcare money for America. We do appreciate that. We need it. We need it badly. So, thank you very much, Yahooligan, for that support. Witch of Heart has been a member of the Godless Army for 19 months. Thank you so much, Witch of Heart, for that support. Nano Mushins has become a new member of the Godless Army. Thank you very much. Enjoy all the emojis that I've made for you, and of course the channel badge, which is the expanding mind meme. So the longer you're with me as a channel member, the more your mind expands. See what I did there? Thank you very much for that support. Frayed Edges has been a member for 22 months. Thank you so much, Frayed Edges. I appreciate that. And Super J Live has gifted 10 memberships to the Godless Army. Thank you so much, Super J Live. So enjoy those emojis, enjoy the channel badge, all the cool stuff that I've got for you. So we do appreciate all that support. You guys rock. And it looks like we are back or caught up. So
for the candidates to deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along where it's happening now and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax.
Every accusation is a confession.
He doesn't do, all he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States.
Israel knew it was going to happen in Israel. They didn't prevent it.
No money for Hamas or Hezbollah. Terror, no money whatsoever.
I'm going to say, I'll wait till he's done.
Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all the stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you.
because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's
because
ever,
they save
never
lives.
seen anything like, even from a
Fucking
medical
weird
right to try,
monster.
we can try space age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did
What
for
is
the
he talking
military
about?
was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden.
I got to pause right there. He literally said the first words out of his mouth were, he's a complainer, that Biden's a complainer, and then spent the next minute complaining
about the country's on fire. It's basically 1,000 Charlottesvilles all over the place. Everything costs a fortune, and nobody that I see on the street look exactly like me. So it's clearly a hellscape. Yep.
Daniel Cooper says, I thought this was Bridge the Divide, not Week in Horror.
I mean, it bridges the divide between his channels. Yeah, because it's horror. Yeah.
It does.
Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Aaron Burnett. We already gave full analysis.
All right.
So is that it? They're done?
So that was it. And yeah, it goes to it's going to go to the tables.
Are reacting to this poll.
Dems concerned about Biden's performance tonight. Dem saying we have a problem after Biden's performance tonight.
So the nominee.
I don't know where they're going to go. So, okay. So I think that we're good there. I don't think we need to go into what the talking heads are going to say about this. But so analysis-wise, I think like 1 and 2. Let's say first and foremost, Biden, yes, the age is showing. It cannot be denied on that fact. Okay? Whether it might be. Now, I liked a bunch of his answers, but he got tripped up a little bit. But then again, I offset that by understanding that it is not the man alone who's doing the job. He has an entire cabinet of individuals that he has selected, and individuals that have helped him to select these people. Not to mention, he also has a vice president who will help him in doing that job. So he's not alone. Okay, it's not like not like we're putting that man out there to guard the gates. Okay, right. It's like that's it. But then Trump. I don't know if I can find a single. I can't cushion anything because it was lie after lie, some of which we were able to catch like right now and find where it was lies. But he couldn't stay on point, couldn't answer and there's some questions he just flat out didn't answer, like the childcare question. So I honestly don't know. What's that? Yeah. On a scale, Super J Live says on a scale of 1 to 10, this was an oof. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, neither one of them, I think, did particularly well. Biden, it sounds like I wanted to jump in because I figured since the talking heads had already been on, then that means that there's an opportunity to see like, kind of what the initial headlines are coming in or what's happening on Twitter and stuff like that. X. Apparently, according to a few sources that were, I guess, asked about it. I don't know if this is spin or not. Biden has a cold, which I wondered that at the beginning if he's under the weather.
He was coughing, yeah.
He was coughing, and it sounded like he was kind of like doped up on some cold medicine.
That might have been why he was so hoarse.
Yeah, So,
yeah.
And they said, yeah, he's struggling to get over a cold. Yeah, because I mean, I've seen him speak just recently, and he was a lot more with it than he was in this one. So. Yeah, they probably should have rescheduled it, but they probably couldn't. So they probably just Dayquil'd up and tried to soldier through,
muscle through it.
Yeah, but I couldn't figure out why his speech impediment was back in such a big way. Because normally you'll hear that happen when he gives speeches, but this that's the most noticeable that I've seen it in a long time. And usually he seemed really tired too. So yeah, if they were going for this image of like, oh yeah, he'll be fine. He's going to come out there and he's going to be, you know, he's going to look, you know, like he's ready to take on the job, not with a head cold. Like,
right. Yeah.
Like that's not. But I mean, the other thing too, that the optics of these things are always bad. There's always the timing. You run into that situation where you might be sick or a little under the weather, and it throws off your game. And then at the same time, like, to what extent do any of these really, other than drive a news cycle, you know, do they really affect polling all that much? You know, because okay, Biden was sick. He's obviously not at 100% on that stage.
Right.
Trump was lying almost 100% of the time. So you've got one guy that's, you know, Biden's condition is temporary. Trump is not going to be less corrupt or less of a bullshit artist. So yeah, no, I don't think it wasn't good.
See, Liverpool man 1990 says, "Bridge the divide. Remember, any leader, Biden, Trump, or Sunak, or whoever, or just the pop star there. Lots of Simon Cowells behind them pulling the strings. Absolutely, they're not alone in what they're doing. And so the problem is that Trump, obviously, now just going by track record, Trump obviously does not have the best track record when it comes to hiring people.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that he put in place in his administration were shit, which resulted in a lot of bad, just like a lot of like fallout from the people, and wound up getting, what was it, 92% you said was the turnover rate?
Yeah, I couldn't get the rate of, I mean, that was the rate of the turnover, but I couldn't get the rate of the number of those out of that percentage, how many of them were like fired by him. Because that would include, you know, there was like different carve outs for the numbers of people that were in acting positions that just stayed acting, but he never appointed anybody. Just like, hey, can you do this job? Yeah, I mean, he made an issue out of it. You know, when anytime when he appoints somebody, he's like, hey, I got General Mattis here. He's the best. You know, everybody's like Bulldog Mattis. You know, this guy, nobody's gonna fuck with the USA with him in charge. And then as soon as that guy was critical of Donald Trump on anything, he's like, yeah, what a loser that Mattis guy was. I mean, when people have asked him, like, you know, you do a lot of complaining about all the best people that you hired and then fired. Is there something up with that? Is maybe your eye for talent not as good as you think? And
not as good.
And I think his defense was like, oh well, maybe my weakness is caring too much, giving people a chance. That's his spin on it. Something like that, you know. It's just like I'm
just blinded by my empathy.
That's the impression that all the fans of your show got when you fired. You know, that's what they wanted to see. Not, you know what, let's give this incompetent jackass a little bit more of a chance. And then, hey, wait a minute, why'd you call him an incompetent jackass? Well, because he said my plan to coat all of the plumbing in my house with gold was unworkable and extravagant. Like, that would have made a more accurate show. Like, Biden, what did you want to do? I want a cat ledge on the outside of the window. Yeah, but we're on the 40th floor. You can't do that. Let's move on, this cat.
Daniel Cooper says, plus Trump's rogues gallery has Steve Bannon, asshole, Steve Miller, ghoul. Steve Bannon, who will be reporting to prison here in a few days, I do remember. So Steve Bannon heading to prison, as well as someone else also pointed out that Anamorphic Mind said Trump's administration was full of people that got arrested by the FBI and the CIA. It's true. So, like, I think all of them are either currently in or have done time. So that's sort of there. So people are starting to file out. So absolutely, yeah. So that was it. So ultimately, it didn't turn into, like, you know, it was a shit show. The debate was a shit show, and the moderation, Tapper, Dana, or Donna, Tapper, Jake and Donna, you could have done better. Keeping the interlocutors on point. I appreciate Biden's takes, and I mean, obviously there were issues across the board. There's going to be another debate. I don't think I may not live stream that one. I don't think that I will, but we'll have to find out. And of course, we'll try to do, if I decide to do it, we'll do this again, see what happens there. Because given that Biden was kind of like working with a handicap, I'd like to see him when he's on point, you know, because there were some moments there when the old man dander got up and he kind of popped off, and I'm like, oh, there's the Biden There's the Biden, you know.
Got to coax it. I'm like, oh, somewhere behind the Sudafed and the Dayquil, and although that should have like ramped him up. I don't know. Maybe he's on like something that's leaving him drowsy. But yeah.
Raven Darkster says Ireland jail. Ireland is looking better and better. It certainly is. It really, really is. But I want to thank everybody. We got a couple of things I want to touch on real quick. So Unfucking Believable has been a member of the Godless Army for 34 months. Thank you so much, Unfucking Believable. That's unfucking believable. I do appreciate that support. You rock. Daryl M for I think that's $2 Australian dollars. I think that's Australian. Says there is no childcare under Trump. Agreed. Absolutely, with the cuts that were made. I Killed Earl has gifted 20 memberships to the Godless Army. So thank you very much, I Killed Earl. Very, very generous. Enjoy all those new emojis and the channel badges. I appreciate it. Paul of Scotland for 19.99 pounds says, plus Trump is famous for micromanaging. Absolutely is. And he's bad at it. He's famous for it, and he's terrible at it. So it's
famous for that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And Daryl M for another 5 says, from a non-U.S. citizen, Biden will do less damage to your country. And that is, I think, 100%. That is it is Antarctica. So but anyway, so I think this was fun, and I think it was a good kind of entry there, and I think it may have been what we expected. It didn't turn into an absolute fucking dumpster fire. It almost did with the whole like pissing match about golf. It was like, really, guys? Is that
that was remarkably just out of touch.
Like, it's like guys, next thing you should be like, my prostate is so much bigger than yours. It's the best prostate ever. Nice. It's like, I don't fucking know, but nonetheless, this was kind of fascinating. Now, given the importance of this, obviously, if you live in America, I know we have a lot of people in the chat that are not in America, but if you live in America, the message here obviously is be sure you vote. Whether you vote Trump, whether you vote Biden, okay? Vote.
Don't vote for Trump.
Make sure your voice is heard. That's the point. We want to see those record number turnouts, okay? And yes, Puppy Dot, that was a bit of a fever dream. It absolutely was. So
my views don't reflect the views of this channel generally. I just want to make sure that you all know my opinion is I want to hear those people vote the right way. And you know what I mean.
I understand that. I get you. I'm pretty sure everybody in this channel knows where I'll be voting. I mean, it's pretty fucking obvious.
I just wanted to do a Hail Hydra moment where they're like, Spatchcock's voted for Trump.
So, but I think you'll know where I am voting. But of course, I know we had some people in there. I wasn't actually watching the live chat on my phone. So, whatever got, messages got suppressed, whatever got shut down or whatever craziness got shut down, I wasn't aware of it. But I mean, vote. Get out there and make sure you're voting, okay? And we'll keep following this along because remember, in all honesty, this is probably the most important election in the history of our country. I wish it was between two better candidates, but this is what we have. And if you want Project 2025 in place, obviously you know where you need to vote. If you don't want Project 2025 in place, you obviously know where you need to vote, okay? Yep. So I think that's where the big key is there. All right, and definitely. So we got through the chats and we got through everything started. Yes, I will be going live tomorrow to do another review. I haven't sent out an email yet as to who will be joining me, but someone will join me for that. And I've got some great stuff set aside, some great content that was just too long for me to deal with. So I will be going live tomorrow as well. And probably around the same time that I went live last week, as it was a lot of fun. People enjoyed it. And it was, we had a lot of yucks. So we'll find out what goes on there. And I'll have some content there. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Anything else for us, Jefferson?
No, I'll probably be doing, let's see. I did my show yesterday. So I'll probably be doing a weekend show. Probably going to try to do that Sunday spot. That's the goal. I am going to be getting into doing some coverage with I've been waiting because he wants to guest host with me, but it's an old friend, Redefined Living, Darth Dawkins, one of his stooges, Flying Monkey, whatever, however you want to call that. He's got there's some content there that I'm going to go over because he might be worse than Darth Dawkins, but yeah,
I'd agree.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
So that's about that. But yeah, probably this weekend, maybe more politics stuff. Probably Sunday.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. A huge, massive thank you to every single person in the live chat. I know a lot of you have left, so I'm going to make sure the people that are here, thank you very, very much for everything. All of the super chats, everything that came through. You guys rock. Appreciate it. Most importantly, I mean, if you like or dislike it, those interactions really, really help. And make sure you put your comments down below, especially on specific moments. Timestamps will be really, really good. If there's something you want to highlight, that'll be really solid so that people can reference back to that. But thank you, each and every single one of you, for hanging out with me and Jefferson Spatchcock tonight to check out this debate, or whatever it happened to be. I wouldn't even know if we'd classify it as like a formal debate, but nonetheless, showcase. Yeah, but it was fun. Thank you to each and every single one of you. I've been your host, JL. This has been Bridge the Divide. And as always, be safe, be excellent to each other. And together we can bridge the divide. See ya.